At my own graduation dinner in front of relatives and friends, my parents leaned across the table and told me to surrender my entire inheritance to my sister, as if my future belonged to them. When I refused, my dad lifted my diploma, flicked open a lighter, and whispered, "You don't deserve Grandpa's money." The paper curled into ash while everyone stared. But I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply smiled, stood up, and walked away because the real reason I stayed calm that night wasn't something they could burn, and they had no idea what was waiting for them the following week. My name is Skylar Lawson, and for most of my life, I learned how to make myself small at the dinner table. Not because I lacked opinions or courage, but because in my family, silence was the safest language. Marcus and Elaine, my parents, loved the idea of a perfect household in Del Mar, the kind you'd see on holiday cards. Vanessa, my younger sister, fit that image effortlessly. She was their golden child, the one they dressed up for photos, the one they bragged about to strangers. I was the other daughter, the quiet one, the practical one, the one they'd forget to introduce unless somebody asked. Growing up, I learned exactly where I stood. At 11, I dragged my robot project across the school gym by myself because Dad had driven Vanessa to an after-school art event instead. At 15, I boarded an overnight bus to a research program while my parents took Vanessa to a fashion conference. And at 17, when I won a statewide scholarship, I scanned the auditorium for their faces and found none except my grandfather's standing quietly in the back like he always did. Grandpa Lawson was the only one who saw me. He understood the way I thought, the way I didn't need noise to take up space. He taught me small things: how to replace a circuit, how to read a contract, how to hold my boundaries without raising my voice. Silence, he'd say, can be a strategy, not a surrender. Maybe that's why I never pushed back when my mother dismissed my accomplishments with a nod, or when my father insisted Vanessa had the brighter future. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need them to cheer for me. But the truth was more complicated. There were nights I sat in my college dorm staring at the ceiling, wondering what it would feel like if just once my parents were proud of me. Not proud of how quiet I was or how little trouble I caused, but proud of who I was becoming. I thought graduation night might be that moment. I imagined Marcus shaking my hand, Elaine pulling me in for a picture, Vanessa teasing me in the way siblings do when the cameras are off. Instead, we sat at a polished table under warm golden lights, and I felt the familiar divide settle between us. Every question they asked about my job came with a subtle edge, like they were waiting for me to admit I didn't deserve it. Vanessa talked about her plans in vague, extravagant strokes: new art studios, travel, future opportunities that somehow always involved my parents' money. Still, I tried to ignore the unease curling in my stomach. It was graduation. One night. I wanted peace. I wanted something that looked close enough to a family memory I could hold on to. But people reveal themselves when they think they own you. And that night, my parents revealed everything. The tension that night didn't explode all at once. It gathered slowly, like storm clouds forming behind polite conversation. I noticed it in the way Marcus kept adjusting his watch, in the way Elaine's smile tightened whenever someone congratulated me, and in the way Vanessa leaned back in her chair like she already owned the evening. I tried to stay present. I answered questions about my new software engineering role, kept my tone, light sipped water to ground myself. But underneath the surface, something felt off, a kind of anticipation, as if the three of them had rehearsed something before walking into that restaurant. It began when the panna cotta arrived. Marcus cleared his throat, the sound sharp enough to still the table. He reached into his leather bag, pulled out a brown folder, and slid it across the table toward me. "Skylar," he said, "this is important." Elaine folded her arms. Vanessa tucked a golden curl behind her ear, smiling like she already knew the ending of a story I hadn't even been told yet. I opened the folder just enough to see the edges: financial statements, property details, something notarized. My pulse jumped. I knew what this was. Marcus didn't ease into it. He never does. "Your grandfather trusted you," he said, "but you already have a stable job. Vanessa is just starting out. Sign the transfer so she can manage the inheritance." It's what family does. Family. Interesting how that word only came up when they wanted something. I kept my voice steady. "I'm not signing anything." The table went silent. Vanessa blinked, stunned that I'd said no out loud. Elaine's lips tightened into a thin, judgmental line. Marcus leaned forward as if he hadn't heard me correctly. "Skylar," he said slower this time. "Don't be difficult. This is for the family." I repeated it. No. It was the first time in 24 years I had ever told them no without apologizing for it. Marcus's face shifted confusion, then irritation, then something darker. "You don't understand what's at stake," he said. But I did. For once I understood everything perfectly. When Vanessa let out a small scoff, the last thread inside me snapped. She whispered, "Come on, Skylar. You weren't even close to Grandpa. Why would he leave you anything real?" My throat tightened, not with tears, but with clarity. They had never seen me as anything but a placeholder, someone to mine for emotional labor, for quiet compliance, for whatever they needed. I sat back, breathing evenly. "I'm not signing." That was when Marcus stood, grabbed my diploma from his bag, and flicked open a lighter. His eyes met mine, challenging, cruel, certain he could still bend me. "You don't deserve Grandpa's money," he said. The blue flame touched the corner of the paper, and the entire room gasped as it curled into black ash. But inside me, something shifted, quiet, steady, irreversible, not broken, awake. The flame should have terrified me. It should have gutted me, sent me spiraling the way Marcus expected. Instead, as my diploma curled into ash, something inside me went still like a lake after the wind dies. Guests murmured, silverware clattered, someone reached for their phone. Vanessa's smile faltered, confusion flickering in her eyes. Elaine didn't move at all. She just watched me, waiting for me to fall apart so she could call it overreacting, but I didn't fall apart. I watched the ashes drift onto the white tablecloth and felt light. Years of being overlooked, dismissed, managed like an inconvenience, they all settled into one clear truth. There was nothing left here worth holding on to. Marcus seemed almost disappointed I wasn't crying. "This is what happens when you forget who supports you," he said. Funny, I couldn't remember a single time they'd supported me. I stood up slowly, smoothing the hem of my dress. "Are you done?" I asked. He blinked, startled by my calmness. Vanessa reached out as if to grab my wrist. "Skylar, don't be dramatic." I stepped back before she touched me. Her hand froze mid-air. Elaine finally spoke, her voice low and cold. "If you walk out now, you're choosing to divide this family." The irony almost made me laugh. They'd divided this family long before I learned how to spell my own name. I picked up my purse, placed my napkin neatly on the table, and met all three of their eyes one by one. "I'm not the one dividing anything," I said. "I'm just done pretending this is a family." Gasps rippled across the table, but I wasn't doing this for theatrics. I wasn't performing pain. I was simply done being small. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, heels clicking softly against tile. No one followed. They were too stunned or too proud, or both. Outside, the night air wrapped around me, cool, damp, grounding. The street smelled faintly of rain. Cars rolled by in a steady rhythm. For the first time all evening, I could breathe. I ordered a ride, slid into the back seat, and stared at my reflection in the window. My eyes weren't red. My hands didn't shake. I looked like someone who'd finally stopped trying to earn love that would never come. Aunt Riley's apartment in Hillcrest was dim and warm when I arrived. She'd left the door unlocked, a mug on the counter, chamomile tea bags beside the kettle. No questions, no pity, just space. Lying on her couch that night, I replayed everything not with anger, but with understanding. Their cruelty wasn't sudden. It was practiced, expected. And yet I hadn't broken. I'd smiled, I'd walked away, because deep down I knew something they didn't. Their performance tonight wasn't the end of the story. It was the final mistake that made the truth impossible to hide. And next week at the lawyer's office, they would finally understand just how badly they'd misjudged me. The morning after the dinner, sunlight filtered through Aunt Riley's curtains, soft and warm, like it didn't know my entire life had shifted overnight. I expected to wake up shaken, furious, maybe even heartbroken. Instead, I felt an unfamiliar calm, steady, grounded sharp in a way that made everything around me feel clearer. My phone vibrated nonstop. Vanessa's texts came first, short, smug, dripping entitlement. "Thanks for the room, sis. I'm repainting it, blush pink. You don't mind, right? It's not like you ever liked that house anyway. And hey, maybe try being supportive for once." I stared at the screen until the words blurred, not from tears, from clarity. She genuinely believed the house was already hers. Then came Marcus's email, 3 pages long. Buried beneath the accusations, ungrateful, selfish, dramatic, was a single message. "Give up the inheritance. Fix the mess you caused. Be the daughter we want." I closed the email without finishing it. Finally, Elaine called. Not to apologize. Not to ask if I was safe. She launched straight into strategy like the dinner had been a negotiation gone slightly off script. "Your father didn't mean it," she said, voice watery. "You know how he gets when he's stressed. Just sign it, Skylar. This isn't worth tearing the family apart." But it already was torn. I just stopped pretending the cracks were decorative lines in the marble. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't remind her they'd burned the greatest thing I'd ever earned. I simply hung up, then powered off my phone entirely because there was only one conversation that mattered now. I opened my laptop and wrote a single email to Mr. Dalton. "It's time." He replied within minutes. "Next week. Santa Monica office. They'll all be notified." I set the laptop aside, leaned back into Aunt Riley's couch, and exhaled. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. The week passed quietly, a strange contrast to the storm building underneath it. At work, I focused on code reviews and project planning, slipping into the part of my life that actually made sense. In the evenings, I stayed at Aunt Riley's place drinking tea, helping her with small tasks, watching old movies. She didn't push me to talk. She just sat with me, a silent anchor in a world that had tilted on its axis. "Your grandfather saw this coming," she told me one night. "He trusted you for a reason." I nodded, though the weight of that trust pressed heavy on my chest. When the day finally came, I drove to Santa Monica early. The sky was cloudless, bright, almost mocking. I parked in front of the law office, smoothed my blazer, and walked inside. The lobby smelled faintly of polished wood and citrus cleaning spray. Mr. Dalton greeted me with a solemn nod. "They're on their way," he said. "Are you ready?" "I've been ready for years," I replied. We entered the conference room together, a long table, tall windows, leather chairs too stiff to be comfortable. At the center lay a stack of documents bound neatly, the weight of an entire legacy sealed in clean white pages. 5 minutes later, the door opened. Marcus walked in first, jaw, tight eyes, sharp with indignation. Elaine followed, her expression pinched, like she was bracing for embarrassment. Vanessa strode behind them, phone in hand, sunglasses perched on her head, like she was heading into brunch instead of a legal proceeding. She froze when she saw me. "Seriously," she muttered. "You actually think this is going to change anything?" I didn't respond. They sat across from me. A perfect divide. A perfect metaphor. Mr. Dalton started without ceremony. As stated in the official will of Mr. Lawson, the room stilled. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. He read line after line, details, dates, signatures, witness statements. And then the part they never expected. The full estate, including all properties, investments, and business shares, is to be transferred solely to his granddaughter, Skylar Lawson. Elaine's lips parted. Vanessa's jaw dropped. Marcus lurched forward. "That's impossible," he snapped. "He promised." "No," Mr. Dalton interrupted calmly. "He didn't." Vanessa slammed her hand onto the table. "I already put a deposit on a studio space. You can't just—" I looked at her, steady and unblinking. "It's not yours to spend." She shook her head. "You don't even like the house. You don't even care about Grandpa's company." She had no idea how much I cared. How many summers I'd spent interning, quietly watching the company slip under poor leadership. How many nights Grandpa and I had sat together reviewing blueprints and ideas he never got to implement. Marcus tried again, leaning into the force he'd used my entire life. "You're too young to handle any of this. You'll ruin everything." Vanessa is entitled. I said, my voice quiet but sharper than any shout. And you taught her to be. The silence that followed was thick, uneasy, revealing. Then Mr. Dalton clicked a remote. I have one more thing to show. A video appeared on the screen. Grandpa sat in his study, frail but eyes still sharp. If you're watching this, he began, it means Skylar kept her promise to stay silent until the truth could speak for itself. Elaine covered her mouth. Marcus stared at the screen, frozen. Vanessa whispered, "No." Grandpa continued, I watched you dismiss her accomplishments. I watched you celebrate one child while ignoring another. I watched Skylar grow strong in ways you never bothered to see. The room pulsed with tension. No one breathed, and I am leaving her everything he said because strength should be trusted, not exploited. The video ended. Silence swelled like a tide. I stood, placing my hands lightly on the table. This wasn't revenge, I said. This was justice. And this, I gestured toward the contracts, is me choosing myself. Marcus's face crumpled not with remorse, but with the realization that control was slipping through his fingers. Elaine looked down, tears brimming. Vanessa covered her face, shaking her head as her future rewrote itself in real time. I gathered the documents Mr. Dalton handed me, slid them into my folder, and stepped back from the table. You burned my diploma, I told Marcus, but you didn't burn my future. No one spoke. No one dared. I walked out of the office into the bright California sun, and for the first time in my life, the light actually felt warm. 3 months passed, and the world felt different, quieter, lighter mine. I moved into a small apartment on the southern edge of San Jose, close enough to walk or bike to the tech district each morning. The place wasn't large, but it felt safe in a way nothing from my childhood ever had. A single framed photo sat on my desk, Grandpa and me in the backyard, both of us laughing at something only we remembered. Work shifted too. I stepped into a leadership role at the company, rebuilding the structure from the inside out. No politics, no nepotism, just competence. People seemed to breathe easier. Employees who once looked defeated now met me with steady, hopeful eyes. I never heard from my family again. Not a call, not an email, not even a message from Vanessa, who had once been unable to stay silent for more than an hour. And strangely, I didn't miss them. What I did feel was peace, steady, honest, earned. At night, I'd stand on my balcony and watch the city lights flicker like distant stars. For once, my mind wasn't racing. I didn't wonder what I'd done wrong or what I needed to fix. I wasn't shrinking myself to fit someone else's comfort. I'd finally stepped into a life where I didn't have to ask permission to exist. Sometimes I think about that night, the flames, the silence, the way I walked out without looking back. But now, standing on my balcony with the San Jose breeze brushing past me, I understand something Grandpa tried to teach me all along. Strength isn't loud. It's choosing yourself even when no one claps. My family lost control the moment I stopped needing their approval. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more true family dramas. You're not alone. Your voice matters here.